This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where it's all about getting the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. Brought to you by Itamar Shafir, founder and CEO of Umbrella, the technology platform and brand that is powering thousands of marketing agencies around the country. Find him at umbrellaus.com. Now, here's your host, Kevin Pruitt.
This is the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, and I am Kevin Pruitt. I'm honored to host this podcast. I have another special guest today. He never dreamt of being an entrepreneur until he was faced with a choice: either take a risk or sink back into the golden handcuff trap of corporate American cubicle. He made his choice, took a risk, and today is all in as the founder and chief executive officer of Awarity, a software solution where they disrupt the advertising industry by making world-class marketing more affordable and sustainable for up-and-coming companies. He has a BS in chemical engineering from Purdue and later earned his MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. Spent 14 years at PepsiCo, where he pioneered new ways to unlock the power of digital media across a wide range of brands, including Cheetos, Cracker Jacks, and Lay's Stax. Please join me in welcoming Aditya Varanasi to the Marketing Umbrella Podcast. And I apologize, I butchered that name probably.
No, you're doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, it is a pleasure. We've had a fun chat here before we hit the big red record button. But that, bios are so short. Please round it out a little bit. You are obviously the crown prince of a major city in India. So, you told me that before we hit the recording button, and now the world knows that. So
there's a difference between off the record and on the record. You know that.
You didn't tell me. I couldn't share that. That's right. So yeah, what do we leave out of the bio that might help our listeners have a better foundation?
Yeah, I don't think I knew what I wanted to do for a really long time. And I was fortunate that just through a series of experiences got kind of this point where I'm doing something that's got me all in and fully immersed. But I think at the end of the day, if I take a step back, I think what attracts me are just challenges that people feel like might be impossible. Yeah. And that's probably the thing that drives me is how do we tackle that next hill that maybe it's a little bit of a challenge and it's easy to shy away from, but let's go get the right group in place. Let's get the right team in place and let's go try to take it.
So, you had a pretty long run there at PepsiCo and in the corporate environment. And so stepping out of that, can you think back to that last day, that Friday you walked out of PepsiCo head HQ, and then Monday you're going, I'm running something now. What was that day like?
Yeah, I think fortunately I had a softer transition. So when I left PepsiCo, I was hired by a private equity firm to run a startup. So I got to continue that biweekly direct deposit, but still get a little bit, dip my toe in the water as an entrepreneur. And it's not true entrepreneurship until that biweekly direct deposit stops.
That golden parachute takes off. Yeah.
The mechanics of learning how to start a business, how to think about the value proposition, how to position it, how to start generating revenue, just experiencing a lot of those pain points with a great mentor was incredibly valuable for me. And I think as I talk about my evolution, I think it went from when I started my education, just seeking financial stability to slowly over time, starting where that maybe became, I don't want to say less important, because that's always important, but starting to focus more on, hey, how can I have that, but also something I really enjoy doing. And that's what led to that whole series of steps. That's what attracted me to the private equity firm, was a chance to really build something and have many degrees of freedom to try to build it and learn from, like I said, an incredible mentor. And that was really the springboard that helped me break those golden handcuffs, if you will, and get out into the entrepreneurial world.
So it's kind of the chicken or the egg, metaphor here. Were you invited into that space before you had the idea? Did they invite you in and say, hey, we're going to come up with something?
No, that experience was they were a firm that had raised a lot of money. They were keen to start a new insurance business and basically try to disrupt commercial insurance. They wanted somebody that had a technical background, but also top tier consumer marketing experience. And there's not a lot of folks that have done both.
Mm-hmm.
And they were looking heavily in the Dallas area. So my name came up through a search. We had a few conversations. They made me take a test. They put me, put me through a number of interviews, and they said, "Hey, no, we think this would be a great fit." And I just felt like it was a chance to try something
Sure.
that I maybe didn't imagine when I talk about wanting those degrees of freedom and being
Mm-hmm.
able to tackle difficult challenges. It was very appealing from that standpoint. And I didn't know that would start my transition to entrepreneurship. So I was only there about 6 months,
Mm-hmm.
and that private equity firm shifted directions. They had some opportunities for me to stay on, but I think we parted ways amicably.
Mm-hmm.
But that created the itch. And as I interviewed with a number of companies, I couldn't find anything that I
Yeah.
was really excited about. These were some great companies I was interviewing with, very recognizable global names, and nothing got me fired up. I'm like, if I can't get excited about this position at this company, what is going to
Mm-hmm.
excite me? And it was while I was on a trip interviewing with one of these major firms. I was talking to my best friend, and he's jokingly said, we should start a business. And it was like the proverbial light bulb went off.
Yeah, the aha moment.
And I knew we wanted to do something in the marketing space. We thought we'd focus on healthcare and help
Uh-huh.
healthcare systems. As healthcare decisions are becoming more and more consumer centric
Mm.
with high deductible plans,
Yeah.
people using discretionary money
Right.
to pay for their healthcare needs. If something's discretionary, then you start to question, do I want to get my knee taken care of, or do I
Mm-hmm.
want that flat screen TV? And to help position these healthcare systems in a way that they could showcase the value they could bring to people's lives. And I think we were just ahead of the times, because the folks we spoke with in healthcare systems just didn't really feel like it was a big problem
Yeah.
at that
And I
time.
mean, travel healthcare, people are traveling for, cheaper rates with great care,
Right,
internationally.
right. And so, but as part of that, I wanted to bring more programmatic advertising into healthcare, because I felt like you could have needs-based advertising
Mm-hmm.
that way. So based on the things people are reading about, while they're reading about it, you could tout some kind of treatment that potential patient may not have been aware of. And the
Mm-hmm.
focus was going to be on healthcare, but I thought we could expand. And so when the healthcare kind of consulting side didn't work out, my friend kind of went back to what he was doing, which he never left. He was just kind of
Mm-hmm.
helping on the side.
Right.
And I went all in on building a kind of a user-friendly, affordable, programmatic advertising platform for brands of all sizes to build awareness, hyper-targeted awareness.
So oftentimes, when I talk to people that have kind of stepped from corporate to entrepreneurship, it's like they were scratching their own itch. In there was a direct correlation between what they were doing before, and they saw a gap,
Yes.
in that
Yeah.
job that they had, or that career they had, that they could somehow think, you know what, I'm not the only one that has that gap. I
Right.
know many
Right.
people that have it. So is that indicative of your journey?
No, absolutely. So when I was at PepsiCo, one of the most transformative experiences there was we ran a marketing mix regression. So that's basically you take all the inputs of everything we've done on our brand. So take Cheetos.
Mm-hmm.
Which weeks did we have TV? Which weeks did we have pricing in different retailers? Which weeks did we have merchandising? Which weeks were competitors doing things, new product launches? Just anything that could impact sales was put into a model. And then you could assign a coefficient to everything to say how it ultimately, you run
Mm-hmm.
a regression and then assess how it impacted, each of those activities impacted the end of year sales
Yeah.
ultimately. And it seemed really smart. Like, hey, we're going to make really smart decisions. But first off, let's just say pricing is efficient. What are you going to do? Keep discounting till it's zero? There's diminishing, every one of these knobs has
Yeah.
diminishing returns at
It's a
some
race to the
point.
bottom.
Right. And everybody at PepsiCo knew that. That's a little more inherently obvious. But the second thing, which I think the engineering background led me to want to ask, is the model didn't account for the interaction of variables. So I had them
Mm.
rerun it. We couldn't run all combinations, but I had them rerun it and say, hey, what happens when we've got, and I picked more the channels we could control. What happens if we have TV running at the same time as merchandising in store
Hmm.
and at the same time as pricing? And what the model showed is the lift we would see was actually greater than the individual components
Hmm.
on their own. And forget data, forget, regression and R squared and all of that. Just take a step back. You're a consumer. You're watching TV. You see a Cheetos commercial. It
Yep.
just reminds you.
Yep.
You don't think these things consciously, but it reminds you it's orange, it's messy, it makes you feel like a kid. That feeling you have takes you back to when you were 10 years old and having fun at recess or whatever that might be. And you don't think these things consciously, they're more subconscious sentiments, but that's what you feel like, oh yeah, Cheetos. I feel like a
Mm-hmm.
kid when I have Cheetos. You don't
Yep.
articulate it that way,
Yep.
but you feel it. So then it's in the back of your mind. Then you go into store and you see it in a merchandising unit in a high traffic area, and you're just more likely to notice it.
Mm-hmm.
I was just thinking about Cheetos. I just, the commercial. You don't think it was the commercial, but I was just thinking about Cheetos. Then it's on sale, $1 off, and you're like, well, I'm just gonna grab a bag. And that's how every purchase decision anyone makes, B2B, B2C, is made. It's a culmination of various touch points that play different roles
Mm-hmm.
across both a physical, tangible journey, but kind of also a psychological, subconscious journey of becoming comfortable with a brand,
Yeah.
comfortable
Yeah.
with a vendor,
Right.
to ultimately pull the trigger on something that you think is going to help your life in some shape or form. So fast forward, I get to the private equity firm and we're running this, starting up this insurance business. I'm like, hey, I need to build awareness. I need to have kind of things across the entire marketing funnel if we really want to try to give this thing a shot to grow. So if we're going to reach new customers, we need to reach a lot of them because they don't need insurance every day.
Mm-hmm.
Only if you assume it's annual renewal, like, hey, they only need it, thinking about
Yep.
it, maybe 1 month a year. So we need to cast a wide yet hyper-targeted net. And there wasn't a great tool to do that. With a lot of programmatic advertising, there's
Right.
high minimums,
Yep.
and candidly, there's non-standardized controls. People might use the IAB standards, they may not,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't really know what you're getting. And I thought there's a real gap here. Small businesses don't have a way to reach new people. They're pouring all their money into social, all their money into search. Those channels are getting saturated, very expensive, and candidly limited reach. If you're only relying on social media to reach new customers, it might feel like everybody's on social
Mm-hmm.
media, but really,
Yep.
when you look at the time spent online, it's not a huge percentage of the time online. The bulk of the time we spend online are actually on websites.
Mm. It's the reason they
And
call it vanity metrics.
right. And so I thought, hey, if we can add a new way for these businesses to build awareness with a channel that it's very targeted but broad reach and make it affordable, it could have the same effect that TV advertising had on lower funnel
Mm-hmm.
tactics for Cheetos. And that was really the impetus for starting Awarity, was the experience at PepsiCo, the experience at the private equity firm, seeing that there was a gap, and small businesses, they used to turn to the yellow pages,
Yep.
local print, newspapers. Those things are no longer really the same options they used to be
Right.
15 years ago. And so that's the gap I saw and led me to start Awarity. But we had to do two things. It had to be affordable, meaning these $25,000 a month minimums weren't going to get us very many small business customers. And secondly, it still had to work. So $299, our pricing starts at $299 a month all in. That may be sofa change for PepsiCo, but for a local restaurant, that could be half their monthly
Yeah.
marketing budget. So
Yeah.
it had to move the needle.
Yeah.
And so we also reimagined and reinvented the way that media is purchased in the DSP environment, ultimately built our own AI-based optimizer that doesn't just rely on third-party verifications, but looks at our own to maximize viewability, minimize the bid, and ensure our clients'
Mm-hmm.
ad targeting is as efficient as possible.
As you were talking, and I'm still trying to picture me as a child, with the Cheetos again. You kind of lost me, or you drew me in on that one. So I'm an 8-year-old again, but
See, next time you go to the store, you're
there's
gonna
no
notice
doubt there's
it.
gonna be 2 bags of Cheetos in the car for sure. The one thing that from a layman's standpoint, looking at the marketing space, so the one thing that seems that I would love for you to unpack a little bit is that you almost talk about marketing in a very formulaic sense. It says it's A plus B equals C. I mean, here's the variables that we're going to play with a little bit to affect the outcome. But I can see that perfectly easily with Cheetos. Insurance is a little different because just the buying decision, the emotion around that, all that. I mean, how does software account for the broad range of product or services? How does Awarity like
Yeah.
do you understand kind of the basis of the question? How does it factor that in?
It's still look, there's different purchase cycles. There's different barriers to purchase.
Hmm.
There's different competitive sets. The four P's still apply, just every business has a different purchase cycle. But at the end of it, people start when you have an insurance decision to make, you're going to start with the names that come to mind first. That's
Yeah.
just who you're going to think of.
Yeah.
That's brand awareness.
And some
And if
trust
you're
built into that too, for
and
sure.
if exactly, and if
Yeah.
you're an upstart trying to disrupt the space, you're climbing, you're at the bottom of the ladder
Hmm.
trying to climb and get noticed at the top. And so, how do smaller businesses do it? I think you have to start very, very focused.
Hmm.
You're never going to outspend the big competitors,
Right.
but maybe there's a specific market niche and a
Hmm.
specific geography, and you could saturate that segment with your budget just as much as the big guys and build your brand and over time expand. So you have to be much more strategic on where you want to win. Look, we're doing the same thing with our business. As we've grown, while we work with a lot of small businesses, enterprise companies have been like, hey, what you're doing is really efficient. You can target points of distribution on new
Hmm.
items and only serve ads in those areas, or you could target specific census tracts or census blocks,
Yep.
or we can automate the campaign based on product availability and provide API connectivity that if the product's not available, pulls it and features a second product, or needs-based advertising.
Hmm.
So there's a number of use cases for this automation we built for small business. And so we're focused on how do we go into the franchise world as an example,
Hmm.
where instead of setting up one campaign for 1,000 locations, we can set up 1,000 micro campaigns around each location with
Hmm.
personalized reporting,
Yep.
personalized targeting, personalized creative that's relevant to that market.
Right, where the template's kind of the same, it's just adapted for the demographics of the local, kind of
Exactly.
contextualized a little bit, for that
Exactly.
local locale. So are you eating your own cooking? Are you, I mean, obviously you're in a position, it's a relatively new company, so you're in a position to need some of those same services.
We are. No, we absolutely are. And we're also trying to be very surgical and where we use our own platform to serve
Hmm.
ads to build brand awareness. And we have the same expectations we tell our clients. It doesn't happen overnight. You
Hmm.
have to stay focused, you have to stay consistent. And that's what we've done. And we've seen it's not overnight, especially as a newer brand, it's not overnight, but we're seeing a steady uptick in new inquiries month over month over month, year over year over year, as the brand starts to become known. So sticking with the plan has paid off.
Yeah. Is it, let's kind of drill down on the product itself or the service itself, the software
Yeah.
service. So is it, I'm picturing maybe two different options. Like one, it's certainly a labeled, option that a business can just incorporate. Is there also a white label version that, say an agency could adapt, use it like as
Absolutely.
their front end?
Absolutely. So we haven't launched a full-fledged white label platform. We do have a lot of agencies that use our
Hmm.
platform. Some of them, they just tell the client, this is what we're billing you through Awarity, and here's our management fee on top of it to be ensuring that everything they're doing is in lockstep with our broader
Hmm.
strategy. We're updating creative, we are reviewing reports, we're aggregating metrics. Like they should definitely be compensated for that. And we have some that just say they take our platform, they pull some data from it, and just put that into whatever reports they're sharing
Hmm.
with their clients. Look, there's instances where there's agencies we've created white label portals
Yeah.
for them. So their
Yeah.
clients can get into a password-free reporting portal. It's branded for them,
Hmm.
and we live completely in the background. So sky's the limit. I think if
Yeah.
we found different agencies have different needs and different ways they run their shop, and because we're tech centric, we have our own dev team, we can tailor
Hmm.
the solution based on what makes the most sense.
What is what are the complementary services to Awarity? Like what are some other like, you know, how do I phrase this? What are some other, I guess, add-ons, that other companies have built that are a great complement to what you're doing?
Yeah. So look, we first off, we always look at we ask prospective clients, particularly small business clients, what else are you doing in marketing?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we like to screen for is if they're not doing anything and then they're coming to us, we want to make sure it's the right fit because
Mm-hmm.
generally awareness pays off. Go back to the Cheetos example. It's the culmination that drives growth. And knowing we want these businesses to be successful in the long term, if they're just coming to us and they're not doing anything else, sometimes we'll tell them, hey, we think you should get these other channels up and running. You should maybe grow your revenue a little bit. Then come back to us when you're ready to expand that. Because at that time, you're also going to have a better handle on what messaging is going to be is going to resonate as that first touch point as you're introducing your brand.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Yeah.
first off, we do offer that. Secondly, as part of every campaign, we include an animated HTML5 banner ad. We build it from scratch. We match the look and feel of other creative assets the client has. So their
Mm-hmm.
website, their social channels, they can upload logos, images, any design elements or brand standards,
That's
and
good. Yeah.
they're matched to a T. I'm really proud of our creative team. I would say 95% plus of our creative is approved without revision, which I think a lot of agencies would be shocked by, but
Yeah.
it's because we match the established look and feel that's already out there. We're not creating it new because they generally have an agency that's thought through that. We're just executing.
Yeah.
We're executing the buy and adapting it for that medium. Same thing with TV commercials. We'll put together 30-second HD commercials for $1,500. Now, how do we do that? It's heavily editing.
Mm-hmm.
We'll use their B-roll. We have our own stock footage library that we can access. We'll blend it together, give them a storyboard and a script, layer in graphics, and they'll have a commercial that, because a lot of these businesses have B-roll and footage.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's that final push to get the commercial that can be expensive. But again, we'll match the look and feel on the website, and we'll work under the agency and through the agency, or we'll work directly with the client, however they'd like to work. So those are some complementary things we also offer just to make it turnkey to get up and running.
And it's much more than just software as a service. I mean, it really is a comprehensive, not only strategy but service, that you can offer to companies. So, what are some early learnings? I mean, when was Awarity start? What was kind of the start date, and what have you done since then?
I started the business in 2016. I didn't come up with the subscription media plan till late 2016. We signed up our first batch and there were doctors because we're focused on healthcare, about 25 doctors or so, pretty quickly after launching it. And then, I wasn't sure how viable the business was at that point. We're brand new.
Yep.
Actually, worked at Capital One for a year during that time period, took up a job there. Flew out to your neck of the woods during that stint, and then our clients were happy. The folks we had were happy. I saw that we could really scale this. We had some learnings on reporting and what customer feedback is there, what kind of sales objections do we hear, what are the common questions do we hear, and I said, hey, I think we can really scale this up. So left Capital One. We really didn't start scaling this up until April of 2018.
Okay. So it seems like to me that you are almost breaking a cardinal rule of marketing that says, niche down, because I mean, what you described, it seems like your solution has such a wide application. You could almost get lost in just the enormity of the market. How do you focus? Who's the ideal client?
Yeah, so I would say we have 3 distinct segments. One are the small businesses, and they primarily find us through our own SEO. We spend a little bit on Google Ads. We'll have our own banner ads and streaming TV. We do some other things to help build a brand, like some PR efforts and whatnot. But that's really just to get credibility with the small business to find us when they're looking.
Yep.
Then the second and third are heavily focused on with our sales team. One is franchise, and one is more enterprise. And in that second and third, it's about who do we have relationships with strategically, where can we make the biggest difference, which brands are spending on media, are looking for franchise advertising portals, things of that nature, which larger brands are maybe looking to get more granular with their media spends. and personalize that creative down to the zip code level as needed, and try to work with them and help them. So those are kind of the three, and how we reach them.
What was from the time you started, and you brought a pretty, a wealth of experience to the table. I mean, this wasn't a new space for you, and maybe running the company was new, but I mean, the marketing space certainly was not new to you. But what was one aha moment, or one like pivot moment that you thought, wow, I really assumed that when I started this, that this was the case, and I found out absolutely not. This is exactly almost the inverse.
Yeah, I think the biggest one was I designed pricing to be affordable to everyone. $299 a month.
Yep.
And I think there were two things with that assumption. We still have that price point, but there are two things with that assumption that proved to be not true. One is it's a lot of money still for many businesses. $299 a month. I remember I was talking to somebody, I was talking to a neighbor, and as I was launching the business and I was telling them what we're doing, I was like, yeah, it's an all-in media offering with 100,000 targeted ad impressions a month. For that time, we can guarantee 100,000 for $299 a month. He's like, who can afford that? I'm like, I just came from, PepsiCo, where brands had tens of millions of dollars of media budget.
Right.
So it didn't resonate for him. But I think the truth is there are a lot of businesses where that's a lot of money, and I don't think I expected that. And candidly, it may not be the right fit. And I think the second is the folks where that is a lot of money, they may not benefit from what we're doing right away. I think what I'm finding, and there's plenty of exceptions to this, but kind of rough rule of thumb is until a business is north of 7 figures, they're generally still honing that sales and marketing funnel.
Yeah.
And after they cross that, it's indicative of that they have some kind of scalable product. It's not always the case. There's exceptions on both sides.
Right.
But I think at that point too, $299 a month is not a lot of money for them to start. And they have a product, a value prop. Their 4 Ps are at a point where they can reap more benefit from it. I think I've been surprised at how many businesses were doing nothing, came to us as like a Hail Mary silver bullet, and then were angry that we couldn't solve everything that was wrong with their business. And instead of saying, wow, thank you for creating an advertising solution that's actually affordable to us, it was more, well, my business didn't double after I started with this, so it didn't work.
Is that
so? Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, so we revamped our process. So we do much more of an audit of inbound leads that come from small business, ask them what they're doing. We don't necessarily ask their revenue, but we are very clear on what we're selling. We're selling brand awareness. And if you need leads overnight, brand awareness isn't going to get you leads overnight. So we're very transparent with that conversation, and it's led to much stronger relationships with our clients. And we've even had some people come back. They said, hey, I don't need awareness today, but and they come back when they do.
Do you think that your focus with the company is due to the fact that you worked at PepsiCo? I mean, what you were doing there, and the large part was brand awareness and just kind of trying to place those, memories in people's mind type thing.
I think it's 2 parts. I think there is one, I think I firsthand had experience on the impact of awareness on down funnel with that story I shared earlier.
Yep.
But secondly, it's the biggest gap in the marketing funnel, in the advertising funnel for many businesses. Because like I said, search and social are Google, Meta, LinkedIn, they've created some phenomenal advertising tools that are accessible to the masses, incredibly affordable.
Right.
So and then websites, there's a lot of agencies that specialize in helping these small businesses with those tools. So if you look at the space, there isn't a lot of differentiation. I don't want to say differentiation to be had, but like there's a lot of people doing great work. So like we're just going to come in and just try to compete with them. But what I saw was I felt like with all that great work happening, there's really an opportunity to throw some gasoline on that fire, because very few have access to true, efficient awareness building.
Yeah.
And if we can add that on top of the things these agencies and these small businesses are doing, that can really unlock a lot of growth for folks by bringing more people into their funnel.
I mean, it sounds
So
like
yes,
to
it was
me.
part experience, but part there's a gap in the market.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I think it's almost like a combination of the two. Maybe the experience, helped you identify that gap
Absolutely.
that was there. So it sounds like to me that it's more geared towards scaling than it is kind of dialing in, the funnel. So it's like, or dialing in their marketing campaign or whatever that says, you
Right.
know what, when you've got that dialed in, we can hit the fly, put it on a flywheel type
That's
thing. So
exactly it.
so if you're speaking directly to a marketing agency owner
Yeah.
about your company, about your solution, what would you tell them, just succinctly tell me, how would you kind of pitch that to them and say, this would be the most effective way to incorporate this into your overall portfolio strategy?
Yeah. We first off, and we have a page on this, no retainers, affordable minimums. We do all the work. You have access to view everything in our platform, so you can control. It's full service, but anything you want to change, you can self-serve as well through our
Hmm.
platform. You'll have access to real-time reporting in our platform. We're going to make your life easy. We're going to get your client in front of new customers. We can get you on streaming TV for as little as $1,000 a month. We can
Hmm.
get you, over 100,000 ad views for $299 a month. And so it's affordable. It's an affordable way to expand your service offering, and it can scale to any of your clients. And we
Yep.
tailor the solution for them.
And you're working on this white labeled, next
We have
iteration
it.
type
We
thing.
have
Yeah.
folks we've done it. We've done
Yeah.
it with. I think some of those are easier when there's some scale, when they're like, hey,
Sure.
we've got a certain number of clients, we're going to spend this much, then we'll say
Yep.
we'll absorb the
Yep.
cost of building you this white
Yep.
label portal. I think at some point we'll either get to a point where agencies are just comfortable saying, no, we're using Awarity for that,
Hmm.
just like they use Facebook or use Google.
Right.
We're using Awarity for that, or we'll create a white label
Hmm.
portal where maybe it can be auto branded to the agency.
Yeah. That's it's amazing. And talk about growth. What does it look like from late 2016 to today?
Yeah, we made the Inc. 5000 last year, so we were
Amazing.
ranked 2,399. I think we're in the top 200 for across the U.S. for marketing and advertising.
Wow.
And and then I expect we'll be in there again this year. I don't know what our rank is. We still have to complete the submission. 2024 just opened, but it's been a pleasant surprise that the markets responded. And I think it's a testament to our team. Our team is so
Hmm.
bought in on the mission. Small businesses, they employ half the people in this country.
Hmm.
They
Yep.
drive over half the economy. We're all committed to trying to help them.
Yep.
And what's funny is with that, every now and then, it's not very often, but every now and then we'll get an upset client and we'll all share that disappointment. Like, we're literally trying so hard to help them,
Hmm. Yep.
and they're mad that we can't solve things that are out of our control.
Yep. Well, it's and that also that empathy, in dealing with client relations, I think is certainly,
Yeah.
comes through in how you're relating to them. But it's a great story. It just, what you've built and with your team and what you see and sounds like to me that it's certainly a kind of an upward right, hockey stick looking growth pattern that you're in right now. And it is a very big market, that you're trying to serve. But we're going to shift now. This is one of my favorite parts of the podcast is the rapid fire. And if you've looked
Okay.
at listen to any other episodes, which I think you did, you kind of know what's coming, but just respond right off the cuff, just kind of first thing that comes to mind, and very short, succinct answers. But did you get along with your parents growing up?
Yeah.
Do you have siblings?
Yes.
Any pets?
Yes.
Children?
Yes. Two
Two kids.
boys. Yeah.
So what time do you wake up in the morning on an average work day?
6:30.
And what time do you try to get in bed?
11.
Ideal vacation spot, money not an object.
I really like cruises.
Any specific
I'm not
area
gonna
of
lie.
the world?
Europe's fantastic. So much to see, so much history to see.
Intersection of how faith and work itself out.
Yeah, look, that's important. And I think spirituality is really important to me. I think take a step back in life when the truth is there's very little we can ultimately control. We can control our effort. We can't always control what comes out of it. I think becoming an entrepreneur has really taught me that there is
Yeah.
so much out of our control that in a way, you have to kind of surrender and say you're going to make the most of that day, and that's all you can try to do. And there may be factors out of your control that take things one way or another. But I think in hindsight, the things in life that didn't work out the way that I thought I wanted always led to something better. And so trying to remind myself of that every day is really the intersection of faith and work.
If you were king for a day in the marketing world, what is one thing that you would change about marketing as a whole?
Last click attribution.
Love that. We've done this. We asked this question a lot. That's the first time I've ever had that response. That is for sure. What a great way to kind of wrap up today. I love that.
Well, look at we talked about every purchase, low involvement purchases like Cheetos require multiple steps to happen.
Yep.
It's fallacy to just think the last thing somebody clicked on is the reason that they bought. It completely discounts everything else you've done to that point.
Yep.
You're not taking enough credit for the business you've built if you think it's just because it's easy to measure that doesn't mean it's the right thing to measure.
I had a friend of mine in the UK that one day we were talking about World War II, and he said, yes, the war where the Americans came in and shot the wounded and took credit for the battle. And that is, when I think of last click, that's what I think of is that we took credit for the battle for sure. Hey, is there anything that we haven't touched on? You just like to wrap us up with just a kind of a quick closing thought that you think would be helpful to our listeners?
Yeah, look, I know you work with a lot of agency owners. I have a lot of respect for agencies and agency owners. They're educating their clients in an area where I can tell you nobody is certain. Nobody's ever comfortable about marketing. Look, I was at PepsiCo, and even everybody, and I had the privilege to work with some of the brightest marketers in the world and learning from them. And even half the time there, we would get it wrong. And so I commend what these agencies are doing. I would just say, don't be afraid to tell the client when you think they're wrong. And I've just seen more often than not, because in agency, your relationship with your client is so important.
Yep.
And that's generally what a big part of your business. And what I've seen is those best relationships are where you can honestly tell your client that you think they're wrong. And I can attest to that at PepsiCo. I had some agencies say, no, we think you're wrong. And I respected them more for it.
Yep. It's you surround yourself with yes people, and that's the quickest way to downfall, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Aditya, thank you so much for just taking time today, just sharing your story. It's been a pleasure to interact with you virtually and hear, kind of the path that you've been on and where you're headed. And just thank you for just adding value and just helping agency owners grow and scale their businesses. I appreciate your time. Have a great week.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you for tuning in to another great episode of the Marketing Umbrella Podcast, where we provide the information you need from successful leading marketers to build and grow your digital marketing agency. To learn more, go to umbrellaus.com.